With more than 6,000 small and micro-cap companies listed, if you're looking for the next Apple at the earliest stage, then Channel Check truly is the orchard. The listed companies support Channel Check, so it's free for you, the potential investor, to gain access to institutional quality research from FINRA licensed analysts, advanced market data, industry reports, news, and a growing catalog of videos and webcasts. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for Channel Check so you're always up to date on what's going on at the small and microcap data place. Welcome to the C-Suite series presented by Channel Check and Noble Capital Markets. Noble is an SEC-registered FINRA licensed broker-dealer and the source of the equity research available on Channel Check. Today's interview features Comstock Mining, NYSE ticker symbol LODE. Noble Senior Research Analyst Mark Reichman interviews Comstock Chairman and CEO Corrado De Gasperis. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description for Mark's research on Comstock, as well as news and advanced market data. And now, here's Mark and Corrado.
Corrado, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Corrado, would you talk a little about the company's business model and how it has evolved?
Absolutely. The company started off really, I guess its claim to fame was consolidating an entire gold and silver mineral district. But throughout the time that we spent not just entitling, but building out the infrastructure, the metallurgical infrastructure, the refining infrastructure, we developed a very, very strong network of environmental regulatory competency. You know, we have incredible sampling and analysis plans and protocols with the EPA. We did some mercury remediation, and ultimately we mined gold and silver successfully. So this platform was not only the land, the property, the plant, the equipment, and all the permits, but then creating this competency on processing metals, you know, this metallurgical competency. And so it seemed like a natural evolution for us to continue doing those same types of things, not just with precious metals, but also with some of the more strategic metals. So when you talk about lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite, magnesium, you know, the elements that are present in a lithium ion battery, that expansion into that business was natural for us, not only in terms of metal processing, but also all based right here in Story County in northern Nevada.
Let us start with one of your most recent announcements first. Would you discuss Comstock's investment in LiNiCo in terms of the what, why, when, where, and how?
Yeah, for sure. So LiNiCo, funnily stands for lithium, nickel, cobalt. That's what the acronym and the name of the company came from, and it is secured a pretty remarkable technology out of Singapore. And the technology was not just to recycle these spent lithium-ion batteries, to the black mass, and then take it to those, singular elements like lithium, nickel, cobalt, but actually to go a step further and produce 99.9% pure cathodes. And so with the explosion of the battery market, the demand for not just the individual minerals, but for these components is almost unbelievable. So we secured the technology. We have the full exclusive rights to the United States. We have a facility, state-of-the-art battery metal recycling facility here in Story County, Nevada. We're applying for the permits, and then we will build out that facility. What it will be is a producer of 10,000 tons of cathodes per annum, in the market. So, our acquisition results in us getting up to 64%, of the company right here, in our backyard as we get the operations up and running.
Now, the press release mentioned an eco network of partners, one of which is Aqua Metals, which is a public company, but Green Li-ion is a relatively new startup. So what gives you confidence in their product and process?
So the Eco Alliance itself is a very powerful aspect of the transaction. So rather than just having one company, LiNiCo, producing cathodes for the battery market. We have Aqua Metals that has a hydrometallurgical refining technology, and we have Green Li-ion that has a hydrometallurgical refining technology. Both, one in batteries, one in lead batteries, one in lithium-ion batteries. And so together with Aqua Metals, we really did some great diligence on the process. And what gives us the confidence is that in Singapore, they had a full-scale, a fully integrated operation up and running, not full-scale plant-wise, but full-scale pilot, and it was able to do two major things, Mark. First, showing that they can deliver 99.9% purity from black mass that came from recycled batteries, and then secondly, an exceptional efficiency in terms of the water usage. So in a hydrometallurgical process, there's water. Water can tend to be a constraining factor. It could also tend to be expensive. And so to the extent that we have less water use, recycling ability for the water, and the pure end result, gave us the confidence that now it's just the size of production that we look to scale up to, and that engineering is being completed, and the construction will start imminently here in California with the engineering contracting firm, and then delivered to Nevada, where we'll start getting those units up and running.
Now, what are Comstock's plans with LiNiCo over, say, the next 12, 24, and 36 months?
Outstanding. Yeah, the plan for the next 12 months is, first submit the permits. We have no uncertainty about the receipt of the permits. We did strong diligence in terms of what the state requires for battery metal recycling and what the facility was previously doing with battery metal recycling. So we get the permits here in the first year. It's really the next 7 to 8 months. Then we secure in that same time, parallel with that, the feedstock agreements. It's remarkable that 97–98% of all spent lithium-ion batteries right now are heading to landfills. And so it's just a question of redirecting that feedstock to our facility and facilities for storage. That's a very important point, because we are already entitled to store these batteries at some of our other sites, right? So we think of these batteries as ore. We think of it as the raw materials necessary to run this business, and we'll start stockpiling it. So that's the two biggest objectives, certainly for the next 7–8 months. Then we will start to receive the crushing facility, which takes the batteries and converts them into black mass. So for the second year of operation, we will certainly be producing black mass, and then extending that through the Green Li-ion technology, which really starts with the black mass and ends with the pure 99.9% pure cathode, and starting to ramp that up, where we expect to have, first 1, then 4, then 8 systems up and running. And then at the end of the third year, we would expect to have the full 20 systems operating. So 20 Green Li-ion units, all being fed by one crusher, that will take in 20,000 tons of spent batteries and put out 10,000 tons of 99.9% pure cathodes.
Well, you mentioned the permits. So exactly which permits need to be secured?
There's two when it comes to this type of operation. The first one is the RCRA-based permit, RCRA, which is the U.S. Environmental Standards for Hazardous Materials. It's literally the permit that allows us to receive, crush, process, and refine those materials. As I said, the prior facility owner, which was Aqua Metals, had the same exact permit for the same purpose. And so that is just a question of getting through the process. The second one is easier and shorter. It's the air quality permit. The facility that we have has full air quality controls, again, for the same purpose, and that typically takes about 3 to 4 months. So, RCRA for hazardous material handling, and air quality to just ensure that the emissions are known and being captured. System has all the facility has all the systems in place already for those air quality controls.
So just to summarize, would you remind us again what the products and the byproducts will be?
Absolutely. The products are cathode products. And so, there's 5 major types of cathodes in the market today. Lithium cobalt oxide would be one example. lithium iron phosphate would be another example. Lithium, nickel, cobalt, aluminum oxide would be a third example. So there's 5 major cathode segments of the market. And what's remarkable about the Green Line technology is that it can produce all 5. It has very, very sophisticated computer controls that control the co-precipitation and the chemistry necessary for those 99.9% pures. So that's first. Secondly, and right at the front end of the process, all the steel, all the copper, the aluminum, all of these other byproducts in our crushing system, which is very sophisticated, get separated and grouped and are able for immediate sale. In fact, before we even get to the IP, where we're taking black mass to pure cathodes, we're selling copper, we're selling steel, we're selling aluminum, we're selling black mass itself, at a profit. So we like the business model also in terms of how we phase it into production, not just the ultimate high value that's at the end of production with the cathodes.
Now let us talk about Mercury Cleanup. Some exciting things to talk about there. How's the pilot testing going for the Comstock Mercury system? And you already have 1 unit deployed in the Philippines. Yeah,
I mean, let me start with the latter. The Philippines kicked off last week. The equivalent of the United States EPA, the head of the Philippine DENR, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, was on hand. The governor was on hand. The mayor was on hand, and over 100 delegates to kick off our Philippine operation. That was just at the end of last week. So now the system is up and running. It's cleaning the sand and gravels from the mercury, and it is separating the mercury and then separating the gold, out of that mercury. That system can run at about 150 tons per hour. We were asked not to run it full until the kickoff had occurred. One of the things that was really exciting to hear the head of the DENR say at the kickoff was that the Naboc River cleanup, which is our project, is not only critically important, but it represents the pilot for the Philippine country to be extrapolated to all other the contaminated mining areas in the country. This was a quote from him, and to us, very exciting because the project itself is significant in size. We could ultimately have 4, 5, 6 of these units deployed over a 7, 8, 9 year cleanup life. But if we show immediate success, the indication here now is that there are other locations, and the country from the president down to the localities have committed to this. I mean, committed to the eradication of mercury from artisanal and small scale mining in the country, not just in the Naboc River province where we're kicking off. So that's very, very exciting. On the Comstock unit, the system here is more sophisticated in the sense that we have mercury centrifuges, mercury reactors, spirals, and separators in multitude, like 3 centrifuges, a massive central reactor, multiple spirals. And it was designed really to be the end all of mercury remediation, meaning it's hard to imagine by the time the material gets out from one end to the other, there'd be very much, if any, mercury left behind. Our goal is to be below the EPA standard that allows the material to be used for any purpose, which means clean and safe. But the system runs not at 150 tons per hour like the Philippine system, but closer to 25 tons per hour. And it's very, very important for us to scale that up, starting at 2 tons, 4 tons, all the way up to 25. So we were running it at 2 tons per hour just before the winter set in and before we headed off to the Philippines to do the second system. It was running fully integrated. It's a mobile system. They're all mobile, meaning they have wheels and can be moved. It is self-sufficient, meaning it has its own water treatment facility built into it. They're really designed to be going out into remote places and cleaning them up without any real supply chain needed following it or water hookups needed following it, and it's running. So it was running fully. And so now what we're spending our time doing between now and the next month or two is sampling all of the most sufficient or significant areas around the Comstock district, and we're starting to find some incredible samples of amalgam. And really, we think about the low end of the grade range as about 1 gram or 2 grams per ton, and we're finding gold in the Comstock between 1 and 7 grams per ton. So we're finding great material. As soon as the Philippines is fully up and running in a sustainable way, our CEO will come back to the Comstock and resume, the ramp up of the U.S. system. I'd just like to conclude by saying that the U.S. system is really intended to be like a perpetual pilot. It's allowing us to test every types of amalgam, every type of retreated tailings, old mine dumps, and the metallurgies. When you're talking about 50 years of mining from 1859 to 1909, using mercury in so many different ways, and then 100 years following that of treatment, retreatment, reprocessing, it's given us just a plethora of samples to really perfect how the system can work in different types of environments with different types of materials, all in one place. So what will be happening, Mark, is that the Comstock system will continue to run and test. Ultimately, we'll move it to where there's hundreds of thousands of tons of tailings, and then just start processing here on the Comstock. But we really are more interested in all the science and all the metallurgical data that's coming from this one. In the meantime, we just started the material ordering and purchasing for the second Philippine system. So things are moving.
So it sounds like commercialization is probably happening quicker in the Philippines, and you will expect to deploy more units in the intermediate term in the Philippines.
Commercialization is happening right now in the Philippines. It will accelerate in the Philippines. You said that very well. We can commercialize other projects now. The Comstock system is meant to be, sort of the most complex. In other words, we might not need that kind of sophistication, for the majority of the projects that we deploy to, but we want to make sure we can deploy to any project. Hence, we want to, really continue to pilot here on the Comstock. We'll be getting gold in the Comstock. We'll be generating some cash in the Comstock. But the real purpose of the Comstock is to ensure that the system can flexibly operate, in many, many different types of environments.
Now, during your recent investor update, you mentioned that you're evaluating several valorization projects. What are the boundary lines of the opportunity set?
So currently, we're looking at immediate opportunities that really fall into this scope of metals. And so obviously, we love silver, lithium, nickel, cobalt. We're looking at, and we're producing pure cathodes with the LiNiCo situation, but we're looking at technologies that perhaps can take black mass to cobalt, perhaps take black mass to just lithium carbonate and cobalt. And so, we're also being interested in that. Even though the cathode market is multiples of value, there is some value in us to be able to sell into different segments of the market. Having said that, we're also looking at some carbon graphite graphene opportunities, which are very complementary to cathodes, because you can then be in the business of producing anodes. And it's probably worth me just mentioning that really I started my career in the graphite industry, a public company called GraphTech that is the largest producers of cathodes and electrodes in the world, and also amazingly represented the singular largest recycling supply chain in the world. So we feel this is all very much within our core competencies. But I must say, in seeing these mineral and metal-based opportunities, we're also starting to see some other valorization opportunities, taking other types of materials, which are waste, and turning them into highly profitable ventures. So I don't think that's around the corner, but it's something we would be interested. So we're really changing the platform from first precious metal mining to then precious metal valorization to expanded metal valorization, and maybe there's an opportunity to go beyond metals if we feel it's within our core competency and if we feel it's within our team's capability.
Well, before we wrap up, turning to mineral resource development, How much do you expect to spend on exploration and development in 2021, and when do you expect to publish an updated mineral resource estimate?
The great question. So I have two answers to that question. So the first one is that for the Dayton Spring Valley complex, which is the entire southern part of the Comstock district, which we own, control, and are doing the development of, we plan to spend about $2 million in drilling and development there, and we plan to publish our next technical report next quarter. So we're literally 3-4 months away from publishing a technical report, which will literally have a mineral resource estimate in it for the Dayton, which means gold resources, which means silver resources. And as soon as we publish that report, we will be, coincident with that, incorporated into that will be our drilling plan, which will be the about $2 million that we would do thereafter. And we would be in a position to issue a second technical report upgrading the resource thereafter. So there's a very high probability that we would have two technical reports this year, certainly the first one within the next 3 or so months. The second point I'd like to make is that Tono Gold is spending about $8 million drilling both core and reverse circulation in the northern part of the district, where we have 1.5 to 2.5% royalties on all of those properties and an option to acquire 3% more for the most central core of those prospective gold and silver mineral claims. And so Tono is spending $8 million that complements our $2 million, and we have all those royalties and stakes in that property. And Tono is expecting not only to issue a technical report on the Lucerne resource, again with our royalties tied to that, but also on these other exploration properties incorporating their own geophysics and incorporating their own drill results. So I think from the Comstock, there's going to be $10 million of drilling with at least 2 technical reports published this year, and potentially a third that all contribute to, validating our foundational resources and the value that they contribute to our company.
Well, Corrado, as you mentioned, you have a growing royalty portfolio, and the partnership with Tono Gold has created a lot of value for Comstock shareholders. Would you consider selling Dayton Spring Valley in exchange for a royalty interest at some point, or do you ultimately intend to develop the resource?
So I guess the easiest way to answer that is we love the gold and silver assets, and that we would be very interested in always having a stake in the gold and silver assets. With the Tono example, you see we prefer them to be deploying the majority of the capital while we retain the value increases that come with those, expansions and developments. So there's no reason we wouldn't consider a similar model with the Dayton. There's no reason we could consider monetizing it in another way, but we would like to keep some stake because we're bullish. We're bullish on the metals, and we're bullish on the scarcity equation driving those values higher and higher, especially silver, especially gold, of course, lithium, nickel, cobalt, graphite.
And Corrado, how has your shareholder base evolved along with your business model?
Well, Mark, it's been remarkable. The precious metal segment is a very precise segment of the market. We have a good following, but when we started to introduce battery metal recycling, when we started to introduce lithium, nickel, cobalt, and these other materials, and I guess coupling that with the mercury remediation, the environmental awards and reclamations, we've been recognized in the state of Nevada and by the federal government as #1 in reclamation excellence. It introduces not only a broader group of cash flow investors, growth at a reasonable price, value, but also this ESG segment, credibly, solidly, and so when people actually diligence us and see the social impacts that have already occurred here on the Comstock, rebuilding of roads and the removals of mercury, there's a strong credibility when we're cleaning an ecosystem, an entire ecosystem in the Philippines as their pilot for the rest of their country. There's such a depth, and so we've already seen just with the last capital raise with Noble, an entirely new. Every participant in that offering was new, cared about recycling, cared and liked very much the growth profile of the metals, but the impact as well. So to be truly growing a profitable business and making those depths of impact. These aren't, hey, we're going to reduce our carbon emissions a little, and hey, we're going to, be nice to our neighbors a little. I mean, this is terraforming. This is transformational in terms of environmental impact. And so I think we've only scratched the surface, of new investor interest, because we've gone from a very slender segment of the market to almost the entire market. So we're very excited about the future in terms of new investors coming in. I think we probably already changed our top 30 by 20, 30, maybe 40%, not by subtraction, just by adding new names. So I think this is just the beginning of something very exciting.
Corrado, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this C-Suite interview presentation brought to you by Channel Check. Visit our YouTube channel for more interview content, as well as virtual roadshows and conference presentation replays. New content is added regularly, so subscribe below to stay up to date. Visit channelcheck.com or click the link in the description to access equity research, news, and advanced market data on this and the 6,000 other small and micro-cap companies listed.